Okay, I'll quickly, you're backstage and you're talking about what is the actual panel topic. It is real-world AI applications. And I wanted to tee up the convo and would let these gentlemen talk more about real-world apps and what do they do with that context. What is real-world apps? When you think of AI, you can almost think of it as a spectrum, right? At one end, you have applications which will seem like very simple mods, which end up being playgrounds and sandboxes for enthusiasts, tinkerers, everyone. And then, when you think of from a vantage point of businesses, and that's what we think of when we say real-world AI applications, you actually have to deliver much more. You have to deliver on the promise of actually doing better on costs, better on quality, better on efficiency, efficacy, around something that a serious practitioner or a business needs in their workflow, right? So to set the stage, that's what we mean when we say real-world AI applications. Otherwise, everything is in real world. We have still not entered the metaverse yet. With that backdrop, I would like to ask all three of my panelists to quickly talk about what do they do, what do their products and businesses do, and where does that aspect of the depth and width of the workflow for their end customers come in. Sanket, why don't you go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sanket. I'm the founder and CEO of Invideo. Invideo is a video creation software. We have 30, 40 million users from 190 countries. We might be one of the fastest growing AI companies in the world in terms of revenue, number of users. What we basically enable today is a lot of YouTubers who want to create YouTube content use Invideo, and then the rest are basically small businesses, marketeers who use Invideo to create videos. I think what AI does to the business is basically there are a bunch of people in the world who really want to create a video. But pre-AI, it would take a lot of work for people to create a good video out. And what happens is as the time increases of creation, you see like people dropping off the funnel, and then only very few make it. What AI does is it really bridges the gap to creation and thus much faster gratification for a user, and which leads to motivation of more creation and more success. So that's really what we do using AI at Invideo.
Got it. Thank you. Aravind.
Awesome. Hey, guys. Co-founder and CTO Aravind over at Bifrost AI. And our main goal at Bifrost is actually like accelerating physical intelligence. And what that means is all your physical AI systems, everything from self-driving cars, drones, a lot of the stuff that Boston Dynamics showcased earlier, think industrial warehouses, they all need physical AI systems to do all these laborious tasks that are super critical for like all these different heavy industries. But the problem that they are facing is getting all the data to train that AI systems is extremely hard to get. You need to build the platform, you need to ship it onto the real world and collect the data and label it by hand, and then just train those systems. But the even more tricky part is that once you have built the system, how are you going to test it at scale? Even if we do build like an AGI system, are we going to release it into the world? How do we test it in a more scalable manner? So what we do is we work with folks such as NASA, Hyundai, Mitsubishi, Toyota, where we build simulations of reality in like this 3D world where you can scalably train and test your algorithms. So think like something like GTA, it's like a video game, but for machines instead. Right? That way we can scalably train and also test our systems. Josh, over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Aakash, Aravind. Hey, everyone. So I'm Joshua, founder and CEO at Hypotenuse AI. We're a platform that helps you to create marketing content for e-commerce brands and SEO teams using AI. So think about for us when we're looking at customers like our e-commerce brands, typically they're getting in things like new products every single month. They need to write a ton of things like product listings. They need to create blog articles for their marketing campaigns. These usually take weeks, even months, to be able to launch new products, new seasons that go out. Often this needs a very, very large team. They're bottlenecked by just the amount of content that you can create. And if we're just looking at AI models alone, so having some sort of fancy AI actually isn't enough, because you need the context of all the products that they have. You need the context of all the brand voice that they use to write in. You need all that product information in. You need things like keywords that you want to rank for as well. you need this to also all go out to the different websites that they're publishing on. So let's say if an e-commerce brand is going to be pushing out products to different retailers like Amazon, Walmart, or over here would be places like Shopee, Carousel as well. You'd want all those workflows all in play. And so when we think about real-world applications for us, it's about building out a system where we take in all that information together. We can read directly from product information. We have an AI model that's bespoke. It's trained specifically to handle things like e-commerce and SEO content. It can generate things like blog articles, product descriptions, manage all their product listing pages for them as well. And so it changes the scope from them needing to take months or weeks to be able to do this to just being able to do this within days. And it can bring about a 5 to 10x increase in terms of their productivity, and also be able to maintain that sort of level of quality, increase their conversions and traffic for them as well.
Josh, so thank you for talking through what Hypotenuse also does. Actually, I'll start my next question with you, right? Which is, almost all of you have been doing and building companies and your current products the world got infatuated with everything OpenAI, right? And everything AI in the last 2 years. And you would have heard from like many people and founders in the room who would be around, from VCs like myself, that, hey, what is so unique about what you do? And why wouldn't someone like use ChatGPT to do it, right? And it's more pertinent to you and Sanket. This question, Sanket, would have been asked, what happens when Sora comes, right? I want you to talk to us about what is so unique when you have to think, and when you both are running your businesses. What is so unique that you do, not in terms of the product or tech, from a customer's lens, right? And are you positioned for succeeding, or do you think that these alternates or base models, when they keep adding more and more, either it's modality or something else, does that compound for your business, or does that create competition? Because that's a big confusion that most people have, right? Everyone would have heard the question, what's your moat in AI, right? Tell us what's the moat in AI for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's always very interesting for us, and same for Aakash and Aravind as well. We came before generative AI was even a term. If we look back kind of at the start of 2020, even when we're looking at kind of the type of work that we're doing, no one was thinking about LLMs or anything like that. It wasn't a term yet. And so I think what really changed for us is that when ChatGPT came out, it wasn't initially, I think a lot of people were worried, especially for companies like ours, which are in the AI space. But what we found was actually the reverse. It actually helped us quite a bit. If we look back at 2020, when we were trying to get customers, the biggest hurdle that we run into actually isn't that there's competition or anything like that. It's much more that it was very difficult to educate large businesses that they need AI. Most of them do not have AI budgets that are just laid out and allocated from the beginning. It's difficult to start from the beginning and educate them, this is what AI can do, and this is what the use cases are, and then bring that into the company. Post ChatGPT, post that generative AI wave that came about, in fact, so today we have over 1 million users globally. We work with a number of the biggest Fortune 500 brands. Most of these only came in after 2022. It was because that ChatGPT wave actually brought in a lot of education for the industry, where suddenly we went from us needing to kind of push the boulders up the hill to try and educate them, to them actually coming out and seeking us. Because the moment generative AI became a wave and everyone realized its potential, they started to then look for tools which are much more specific, much more specialized to different use cases. So knowing that then you could generate content, for example, or you could speak to an AI and it could actually answer you coherently, people started to think, especially in e-commerce, which is the area that we focus on, what are some applications that you can have in that can help the different workflows? And so for us, when it actually helps quite a bit because we're not looking at, we just want to create content for everyone. We're particularly focused on e-commerce teams and SEO teams, where there are very, very distinct workflows. For an e-commerce brand, you need to do this at scale. You can't just be taking one piece of product information, trying to generate it once, copying and pasting it into a chatbot, and trying to get it out. That wouldn't be a very efficient workflow. It also wouldn't carry out their brand voice. It wouldn't have knowledge of the company, the way they're selling. And it also doesn't track their analytics after that for how their product listings are doing, how their SEO rankings are performing. And so what that brings for us then is that we have, our platform is about having the entire workflow encapsulated in one place, We look at all of this all at once. We pull in their product information directly from their databases. We help them to analyze, track everything, and we even have a feedback loop that then goes on to constantly help them in terms of performance as well. And so when companies come into us, more often than not, something like ChatGPT is more the best kinds of scenarios are when they've actually tried out ChatGPT and they come in, because then they exactly already know the use case. And it brings us a lot of tailwinds rather than actually kind of hindrances on our side.
So what I'm hearing from you is the infatuation and everyone being so crazily excited about this has actually ended up being a tailwind for you in terms of creating that intent and intrigue and interest from your buyers, right? Sanket, I'm going to jump to you on that one.
Yeah.
Beyond the tailwinds of interest, intrigue from buyers, and then being able to solve for your customer and build that extensive workflow, how has all the advances in the past few years that would have happened around AI or Gen AI, how have they compounded for your business?
Yeah. So, Aakash, I very firmly believe that the best products are built at the intersection of user needs and what's possible just now. So anything that's just possible now that can take away key anxieties of what a user does not want to do. And I think AI largely unlocks that. And then when you're like playing in that, what you try to understand is where can you like really add the most value and what segment which is going to be underserved, where they won't feel that ChatGPT, et cetera, is built right for them. And the second part here is I believe in the world of AI, and of course, before going to the question, in the world of AI, UX, brand, and culture, in that order for us, will matter and become a moat. Now, a lot of people do argue that UX is not a moat, and my usual argument against it is that if it's not, then there's so many payment gateway companies in the world, but why are the Stripe documents still best in class? And they are best in class because, and everyone could copy it, but no one's copying it. Why? And I think that has to do with a longer-term, deeper thinking around all these three things, and I think culture becomes a code driver. Now, hopping on to the question of adoption, what I believe happens in the world outside of our products is that there are bottom-of-the-funnel users, there are middle-of-the-funnel users, and then there are top-of-the-funnel users. And I'm not talking about it from people inside the product. I'm talking about people outside the product. Now, bottom-of-the-funnel people are usually already using you. But middle-of-the-funnel users or top-of-the-funnel users, middle-of-the-funnel users are aware, in my example for video, that, hey, we want to create video. But they believe that video creation is difficult, so they never really get out of the bed, find the motivation to do that. When AI comes in, you start thinking simplicity, you start, and then people are having another buying intent that, hey, world has gone through a shift, maybe I will be able to create a video, or maybe I'll be able to do X that was too difficult in the past. So a ton of middle-of-the-funnel users are now coming and trying to do things that they never did, and top-of-the-funnel users are still getting aware. So basically what's happening is the entire funnel is you're applying like very high-quality lubricant to the entire funnel in the universe. And that's, I believe, what's happening with us and most companies.
And which is also, just to ask, double-click on that one, right? Joshua mentioned that for them, it is about a very specific customer set and a very specific problem space. Whereas for you, being almost a prosumer, direct to your end user sort of a product, how do you think of the differentiation when it comes to, and we were chatting about it earlier, it'll be good to share that with the audience, that the way in B2B, Joshua has a very sharp view of saying e-commerce, entire workflow, end-to-end. How do you think of it? Because in a prosumer, it might just be super hard to do it.
Yeah, and also the context of Joshua is slightly different than ours. Like ChatGPT can probably create a description of a product, and that becomes much more workflow heavy. In the case of video, sure, you see things like Sora, but that's not a publishable video, that's just a clip. And we are servicing people who don't want a clip, who want actually a publishable video, and the video that is very ready to be published. And I believe that even in the world of AI and before the world of AI, the differentiation really comes from insights. like insights on particular use cases. So where the technology today is, coming to my point of how great products can be built, where the technology today is, in what particular use case, and what insight do you really have to create magic, to really make the user feel that things that I need are already thought through, that the care has already been applied, and when can you like really do that? And finding that segment, I think, is universal. Like, it existed before the world of AI, it exists at the world of AI, and I don't think this is the last thing we humans will invent and would like continue to exist, because it's like just pure business strategy. And I think like all these folks in FMCG are probably like the sharpest at it.
Yeah, they've been doing it for
I would actually say like there's this very interesting dynamic where everyone says like, oh, there's two kinds of models. There's foundational, giant, trillion-dollar parameter models, and then there's your smaller models. But when it comes to like real-world AI applications, there's a very interesting dynamic where the generalist models are actually really bad at specialist tasks. And when it comes to capital efficiency of an actual business running on a million customer scale, you cannot be running GPT-4 at scale. You instead run like a very, very small, low model. So there's this argument that just because you have this smarter, generalized foundational model, you should be using it. Actually, no, you should be using the smaller model to do your specialist tasks really, really well. Like what you said, you pick your domain, you pick your task, and you hyper-tune it to do that specific thing really, really well. And at the end of the day, I feel it's just another software library. And what really, really matters is, are your customers happy? Right? How frustrated are they? What problems are they facing? It's like just another JavaScript library. You can swap it out for something else.
Yeah. Well, I think all of us in the venture ecosystem, be it builders or investors, many a times we tend to lose track, and all of you seem to be talking about the same thing, which is you do need to be working customer backwards. Right? That's the golden rule of how you build businesses. And many a times whenever new technology waves happen, we tend to become very tech out, thinking, it becomes more like problem seeking a solution sometimes, whereas all you need to do is solve for your customers. They already have the problems. But I'm going to ask you, Aravind, on this one, because Sanket brought up a very interesting one. Joshua suggested there was tailwinds. Sanket said, obviously, again, tailwinds, but a unique thing around UX culture and brand, right? In your context, and that's the good thing that we have this full diversity of every one of you over here, B2B, prosumer, and very unique for you, because you almost serve B2B to people like
governments
them,
as well,
right? Yeah. What has been the biggest change or shift in the post-GPT-3 era for you?
Exactly. So I think for us, it's a little bit more interesting, right? Because we operate in very mission-critical scenarios where it's like life or death, national security, or like human life at stake. You cannot have as much unpredictability and probabilistic nature of AI. So it's about how do you de-risk all that probabilistic nature of it, which is a very, very tricky thing. How do you explain the behaviors of AI, right? So, like, Sora comes along, it's like, oh, now we can generate video, everything looks great. But if you look a bit closer, the human deforms a bit, the physics don't really make a lot of sense. But now all the organizations, like the top Fortune 500, the biggest thing is like, okay, if we are going to put something out into the public, we cannot just put it out. We need to do a whole bunch of testing. And how do we test something that can do anything? That's crazy, right? So it's like, okay, how do we bound the system, right? So it's like Air Canada, they didn't bound their system. They didn't define what it can and can't do, right? So I think a lot of people think about, oh, generative AI can solve all our problems. But instead, it should be like, okay, what is the set of problems that we want it to solve? And what is the long tail of problems that it cannot address yet? Because it's that long tail that gives a lot of these organizations all these like crazy problems.
Yeah. So just switching gears and now trying to do some crystal ball gazing, it helps. Hopefully helps me in doing my job better to hear from you guys. If you were to look forward over the next 4 to 5 years, and we do agree that as of today, there is clearly this real-world application piece, which is true. Some cases it's about workflow, some cases it's about accuracy and reliability. Many other cases is actually just about saying, as he took the Stripe example on UX. But 5 years from now, there is also one sort of a narrative which has been playing out in the ecosystem, which is to say, base models evolve, and you also start seeing a big evolution around the agentic infrastructure, multi-agents. There is also a big thing around UX, Sanket, and I would love to hear your views around ephemeral apps, right? Wherein if you get your core agent architecture to a point where it is far more evolved, and let's say 5 years from now, we've solved these problems around accuracy, latency, all these things. What do you think the landscape would look like? And do you worry about it? What's your view? Because that seems to be a big narrative, right? And the second one for all of you to answer would be, yes, till date, we have not seen business models evolve, right? Like when I look at it from my vantage point, I hear a lot of chatter and keep thinking about it, that if we are moving to a point where solutions and applications are not just about a workflow, but what happens if they start becoming outcome-oriented? Does the business model for you change, wherein you no longer at Hypotenuse are charging usage or user-based, but you'll actually be held up for saying, what are you delivering for me? What are you delivering for me as a business? And that's the value you create, and hence the value equation for all of us who are building ventures changes. Does it not? Right? So somewhat 5 years from now, do you think things change, or do they remain more the same only? Anyone can start.
I can go first, but I think this concept of AI, right? It always shifts what is AI. I think there'll be this transitionary period where we would have achieved it, but we don't quite know it yet, and that the bar will keep on moving. And I think what will happen is we'll start treating it like software. But the part that we are not doing, how we treat software and how we treat AI, the part that we're not doing in AI now is what we call like CI/CD, which is testing the system every time it's deployed. First of all, we haven't figured out how to test things, be it LLM or physical AI. There's no industry standards even for self-driving cars. People are still figuring it out. There's no comprehensive test, right? Scale AI just released Seal today, which is like a leaderboard of all the different models, but they said it's private, right? So people don't know how you're doing it. I think what will change is there will be some form of regulations that come in. There will be some kind of government body that comes in to help with these things, but the private sector will have to lead how we think about testing every time there's a new software update, every time there's a new AI model, especially for mission-critical stuff. And I think the interesting part will be that you will see these systems evolve at a rate that software has never evolved before. Right? Now we get a software update maybe every month, every week. But we will see self-learning softwares where you got what we call machine in the loop, right? Which is it makes a mistake, it figures out how to fix it, and it fixes itself, right? Which is like a lot of the work that we're doing now. But on the business model side, I think that's a very, very open field, which is there are so many possibilities of a lot of crypto folks here as well, but there's this concept that has been going around, which is machines that have their own wallets, right? They can self-organize, you can contribute stuff to it. It's a very long way out, but I think that that kind of business model could be autonomous agents, self-organizing economics could be a thing of the future. Thank you. Josh?
Joshua?
Cool. I can take a stab at this. Aakash, 5 years is a really long time.
Especially in AI cycles.
I would not want to really predict 5 years out. But
yeah. But anyway, any future time horizon?
I think the interesting thing about this space, and I think what's different is that when we think on the 5-year horizon, if we look back 5 years, there wasn't even GPT-3 back then. There wasn't even Transformers was being used, but it wasn't a very big thing back then yet. The interesting thing I think about this space is that it's much more predictable than we think. And one reason why is because if we look at this from an AI research perspective, there are AI scaling laws. What that means is that ever since 2020, when that first sort of people tried to scale this AI technique called Transformers, there has been a predictability in terms of how well performance will increase given more compute. And that law has held true ever since. It's held true as if it's Moore's law, where as you keep doubling compute, or every kind of 18 months or so, we keep doubling compute. And over here, what that leads to is that we know for sure that if we give more compute and we scale up AI models, we increase its size, it's going to lead to greater performance. And that curve of performance increase is actually a very smooth one. So if we extrapolate that down 5 years, it's very likely that that performance will keep increasing in that sort of predictable way. I don't think we're hitting the limits of these scaling laws yet. So very likely a few things will happen over here. If we imagine that now AI models face a lot of issues with hallucination, inaccuracies, not being able to reason certain things very well, or if you give it too much context, it forgets certain things. A lot of that in that 5-year timescale will very, very likely that error rate will very, very likely tend towards 0. Even when we look back 4 years ago, we knew from the start already multimodality was very likely going to be a thing where people are going to be scaling up these models, not only looking at text, but looking at images, looking at videos as well. That will likely hold true for the next few years too. You'll likely get video models, like the ones that you'll be creating, where your accuracy rates are going to very, very heavily go down to, so your accuracy rates are going to keep increasing, your error rates are going to fall down to 0. You're going to get very, very realistic models that come out of that. You're going to get much, much faster AI models as well, ones that can handle real time. Some of these we're already seeing come out right now. And so if we extrapolate this down then to real-world applications, when we look at enterprises, we will hit performance gains where I think, as you mentioned, one of them being multi-agents or having multiple AI agents interact with each other. Not super possible last year. In this year, it's still a bit sketchy. But I think in the next few years, that's something that will come in very heavily, where you get AI models that can review other AI models, and they can do so very accurately. You're going to give rise to many, many different applications from an enterprise scale. Then the question is, how will enterprises react to this? Because a lot of what I think changes how enterprises deal with software isn't always about technology. Some of that is going to be about relationships. Some of that is going to be about how quickly, I mean, they have typically multi-year-long contracts as well, and a lot of those won't change very fast. But on that sort of 5-year time scale is when you see the performance gains that they're having out of it isn't that sort of incremental change where in the past they could say, hey, I got a multi-year contract and a relationship together with this vendor, therefore I don't want to change it because it's just maybe a 10% increase in performance. But if we're bringing in that sort of 10x performance increase or even 100x performance increase, I think in 5 years the whole landscape is going to change. The type of enterprise software that we're using now, some of the biggest ones that we see, there's likely going to be a flip over. It's very likely that many startups will be rising from there as well, because when you have an entire workflow change, it's hard to kind of rebuild an entire legacy system as compared to starting one up from scratch. From a pricing model perspective, I know you mentioned usage-based pricing is a possibility. It's an interesting one and I think some segments it will work. I think for us, we haven't really seen it working, mainly because when we deal with larger enterprises, typically they want some level of predictability. They want some level of just being able to kind of have that bottom line rather than something that fluctuates all the time. So for that, I don't see that affecting us yet. I think for us, we'll still mostly see a lot of subscription-based models. But I'm sure for some of y'all may be already bringing in some form of usage-based pricing there.
Also, go ahead.
Yeah, I think basically like 5 years out, one of the things is like, does the world figure nuclear fusion or fission out? I don't think we have enough energy in the world to really do everything we want to do with AI at this point of time. I think second point of interest would be robotics in data centers. If we don't solve like 2 of these things, I think that AI might take more time to evolve than what we think it would. On the business model side, I think like business models and like everything you do, at least like mid-stage to late stage, comes down to achieving CAC LTV and also trying to really, the wrong word, but to suck out like the maximum revenue that you can.
Yeah.
And I think that answer then depends on what is the competition doing, what are the next best alternatives for a product to do that. So I think like products that have very deep craft, and there will be takers for people and products with deep craft and bad craft. Examples of there would be local examples of analytics companies versus an Amplitude. You'll always see like in a different market, because if you make more money, you can use the best products. Best talent would want to use the best products, and you would definitely be able to charge premium. And what we see with products is that there will be mediocre companies, and then there will be great companies. And I think great companies would command a larger premium. But like, so basically, there are like multi-directional answers to this. But basically, there's only so much revenue that you'd want to leave off the table. Plus, I feel like SaaS actually, I should not say this, but I really think that SaaS operates a lot on forms of zombie revenue. And when you go outcome-based, zombie revenue goes for a toss, and as zombie revenue goes for a toss, your CAC LTV goes for a toss. So I personally feel that you guys would advise us not to play too much on the pricing part, because that will mess with your LP expectations.
No, I think that is true. And just for context, that has been a big part of discussion across the globe, especially in the US, which is some companies have taken that leap, right? Because on predictability and being fully aligned to your customer, there could be nothing better when you're purely linked to cost of revenue, right? So there are companies which have gone down the path of saying, no more usage, no more per user, purely linked to outcome. And the predictability is as simple. We are only going to be X% of the incrementality that we drive, right? Now, that's a high bar. That's, as a founder, that means you have to take that on you, and your product has to then deliver. Because no longer can you be promising that, hey, if you use my product, this will happen. And to the question of zombie revenue, that's been the promise till now.
Yeah, and maybe people are doing that as a differentiation in a pricing strategy, as a GTM strategy. Because when most people are not doing that, this pitch starts resonating with a lot of people. And if basically the company who is doing it, the founder deeply thinks that they would make more revenue by doing this than doing something else.
Yep. No, so we're almost on time. So last thing that I like to ask most founders I meet is one thing, just one single thing, if you had to describe in one line, the most exciting part of being a builder right now in 2024, what would it be?
Doing the impossible, right? Crazy shit.
Yeah, I think we can really build a real-world Jarvis for video, and basically Jarvis for everything.
I think it's being part of one of the biggest shifts that has come for a very long time. I think one that's bigger than the internet or mobile that came about. And especially in seeing AI right now, something that, in a way, is augmenting or taking a large step towards what's fundamentally human, even, which is intelligence.
Perfect. Thank you.
Basically, I just want to add that, right? If we knew back in the day that electricity was getting invented, what would you do? I think we have the first-hand view of electricity again getting invented. What would you do with electricity?
Yep. No, I think, and that's what keeps all of us excited. And thank you for doing this. And I hope everyone took away some interesting bits for their businesses, operations, whatever they're doing. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.